Good evening, people. This is the very last day of March 2014, and you are listening to live Boiler Room Radio here on UCY.TV. I am your host, Jim Funke, and we will be together for the next 60 minutes. And that guy over there in that other chair, well, I'm not sitting, I'm standing, but I'm sure he's sitting, is Lance Musser on the East Coast, FEMA Region 3. Good evening, Lance.
Good evening. Good evening. I am definitely sitting, that's for sure.
How are you feeling? How's your back? I haven't even asked you for a few days. How's your back doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. You know, I threw it out.
Being an old fart?
Yeah, right. Turning over in bed, I think. But
that's, if you throw out your back rolling over in bed, you're an old fart.
Yeah, but, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's kind of worked itself out. So I took a couple pain pills, but nothing major. Never went to the doctor or anything like that.
Because you're a tough bird, man.
Yeah, and I mean, I know they just give you muscle relaxers and say, keep working it out, and that's it. And
you don't need any of that allopathic medicine. Tell those guys to stick it.
Nah, definitely not.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you're feeling better. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a poopy day here today. We had a bunch of rain and thunderstorms and whatnot roll through, and it was kind of cloudy and, crappy all day, wind kind of blowing, but right at the very end of the day, everything slid out, got about 2 hours of Enlil, threw some shadows on the ground, everything was nice and breeze stopped, it's nice and quiet right now. No crickets yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's got money on the pool, but no crickets yet. But it's gorgeous out right now. I mean, it's just so still. It feels like a tornado could drop out of the sky, but I mean, it's not even close to that,
Yeah, it was a weird tornado you dropped me a video for today in Mexico or somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
It was really interesting.
Michoacan. That's, if anybody's cruising around on YouTube, I think you'll find it on Pigmine. Pigmine hit 1 million views too on Pigmine 4. So that's kind of a celebration thing. Jules dropped that earlier today. But, Michoacan, Mexico, there's a tornado you can witness. And I don't think it's a tornado. I think it's called a cold air spout. There was definitely a system in the area, but there was no rain or anything like that. And this thing moved around so strange. I mean, it started on one side of the road, then it moved across the road, and it sat still for 5 minutes?
At least.
And then it moved back the other direction, back across the road to where it was originally, and then it dissipated. So I don't know. It was very, very strange though. And as it was sucking dirt up, you could watch that funnel rise all the way to the clouds. It was a very, very unique video. And I wish I spoke Mexican, because I guarantee you that guy had some colorful language going on.
Mexican or Spanish?
Or Spanish, whatever. I think they actually have their own Mexican down in Michoacan. I mean, they have their own language dialect down in Mexico.
Yep, yeah. Own dialect. Wouldn't doubt it.
Very, very unique video. And we have a couple others that we're going to play. That one won't play very well on radio because it's more visual, but
it is much more visual.
We do have some goodies to get into tonight for sure. So let's jump off though into your Smoke'em's Market Minute.
Yeah,
how did the butts come out, by the way? You were smoking some butts Saturday.
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, Sunday. I did them Sunday because it rained all day Saturday. Mm-hmm. It got eaten, actually. I meant to tell you that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, my daughter and her friends ate that shit. I couldn't believe it. but they didn't know any better. So now I got to make some more.
40 lashes with a wet noodle.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, go ahead.
If you had a 401k, I mean, it's reaching almost 16,500. Just amazing. You know, everything is just out of control. Just like they've said before, on good news, on bad news, it really doesn't matter what it's doing. The market's going up. And even, you know, I sent you that thing this morning where the bond market was doing bad, you know, because I knew the stock market was doing so good.
Right.
And sure enough, both of them ended up well today. I thought it'd be a bloodbath, but
usually if one goes one way, one goes the other, yeah?
It is. Yeah, usually it's like that. I mean, there's no true correlation between the two of them because they can do the opposite, but usually one of the money flees to, you know, security on one way or another.
Right, because if it's leaving commodities or whatever, it's going into dollars, and if it's not, you know, it's going the other way.
Yep. But on mine, you know, my one story, I had a couple of them that I was looking at, but this one, the China thing just keeps popping up.
The gift that keeps on giving.
You started talking about it, you know, 8 months ago, about them buying the property. And I was just, you know, just kind of, you know, him-hawing on it. It really wasn't convinced anything, you know, was out of the ordinary. But then the more of it that I was starting to read, and I'd like to, you know, just point out, make some, pretty interesting things that go along with what you were saying. In the United States has never experienced a time where a foreign nation has attempted to buy up so much of our land all at one time. And as I read this to you, you'll see the Chinese are on a real estate buying spree all over America. And it's not just homes, as you'll see. In fact, some cases, large chunks of land are even being given to them. China's on the way to becoming the dominant land over the entire country, and that's starting to alarm a lot of people. Because do we really want a superpower to physically own so much of our property? And they're playing it down because they're trying to make a distinction between Chinese government and Chinese corporation, but things work differently over there than they do here. In China, the government's involved in everything. Not that our government isn't, you know.
Fascism.
In fact, 43% of all the corporate profits in China are produced by companies that the Chinese government controls.
Fascism.
This is down in Thomasville, Alabama. They're opening up a copper tube company. Golden Dragon Precise Copper Tube Group is the name of it. And they're giving them...
What? Did you say Golden Dragon?
Yeah. Golden Dragon Precise Copper Tube Group is the name.
Google Golden Dragon. Google it.
Why? What's up with it?
Just do. We'll talk about that Wednesday. Keep going.
Okay. A legal notice. Oh, in the paper there, they're giving them 40 acres of land worth $1.5 million. It includes a 50,000 square foot building that they made in 2009. The city built to attract businesses.
Ooh, nice. So the city just gave it to them. Hey.
Well, and you know, I know there's going to be tax revenue, and that's, I'm sure, how they sold it to their constituents there. Mm-hmm.
I think Wednesday we'll go into all the shit they own in Australia too.
Oh,
and
is it
South Africa? Okay. Anyway, keep going.
Let's see. There's another group that signed a $620 million luxury condo project in San Francisco. Another $1.5 billion deal between a Signature Development Group, which is there, and they're doing that in New York City. But it's not just real estate.
SDG is Chinese owned? Signature Development Group?
Z-A-R-S-I-O-N.
Wow.
Z-A-R-S-I-O-N is the name of the group in China, and then it's partnering with this other one.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But again, it's not just land, because when they purchased Smithfield Foods, you know, that's the place right over there across the water from me, 20 miles over there where all the hogs are. They suddenly owned 460 very large farms and became the top employer in dozens of farm communities across the entire United States. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. If you're a hog farmer, you now kind of work for the Chinese because you sold your stuff to Smithfield Foods. They have a particular interest in economically depressed areas, which is the Detroit. We've seen all the stories about Detroit and everything else.
Buying houses for $1.
Buying houses
apartment buildings for $100.
Well, they're actually going through and getting a lot of that in California. And, when they're asked why, they're like, look, these Chinese people have a lot of money and they want to invest it in,
well, if they want to buy all that Fukushima front property, I'd sell it to them. So, hey, anybody out on the West Coast, if you guys own some Fukushima front property, hey, give it up. Give it up. Get them U.S. reserve notes while you can and go buy yourself a piece of ground somewhere that's safe. So that's my 2 cents. Sorry.
And actually there's more to the story there, but it links to another quote that's in here. And I actually clicked on the link to see where it took me. And it was even more revealing. James Bullard, the Federal Reserve Board of St. Louis president.
Oh man.
You've heard of this, people?
Go ahead.
He has said that attitudes in the U.S. are going to have to change because the U.S. will not permanently be the global leader. China is already the largest economy in the world after the United States.
What was that guy's name? Captain Obvious?
Yeah. Oh, great stater of the obvious. That's what I like to say.
Yes.
He's saying that, people think it's 50 to 75 years away before there's a transfer. But China's economy is currently a little more than half the size of America, but also they're growing at 7.5% compared to, us. We'd be lucky to grow any, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And then you always have India on the back burner. So, you've got China just more and more and more in our face. And then they're largest holders of gold now. If they manipulated the price up to gold an extra $1,000, what's that going to do to their worth if they're holding almost all that gold?
Did you know that in the last 30 years, the Chinese economy has gone from the worst on the planet to just about number one?
Really?
Yep. Remember back in the 80s, they told us, man, when we were in school, just getting out of school, how terrible it was over in China and people were, just starving to death. There's still a lot of that going on in certain areas, but the economy, the actual gross domestic product or whatever of the Chinese people is what I'm talking about. Their production, they are the number one producer on the planet of damn near everything. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going. You got another story?
No, that was it. Well, there was a funny one. 2 California husbands who allegedly overheard their executive wives discussing non-public information, like they were playing pool in the pool room, and then they heard their wives talking in the other room. Mm-hmm. Went and did some insider trading based on that information and made a bunch of money, $138,000.
Did they get busted?
Oh yeah, they got busted.
Oh,
so they got busted. They filed lawsuits on them.
Damn.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny, that it's.
And how many fines and penalties, and probably going to be a divorce filed somewhere, I bet you.
Mm-hmm.
You stupid ass! I told you. I could just hear it.
Yeah, so that was a cute story to end it.
Yeah. Let's jump over here and let Scott have his 2 minutes, 11 seconds. And then, let's see here. Mandarino's 6:20 something. Yeah, we're good. I think
it's actually 5:11. At 5:11, he cuts it off. I watched it too. So,
right on.
It's only 5:11.
Okay. So here's here's Scott. Probably going to be a divorce. Whoopsie. Hang on a minute. Let me, jump over there and mute that. Oh, there's a ad anyway. So we'll do that, and then we'll do this. Got to jump over here, and I got to do this. Okay, now we're ready to go.
Hello, this is Scott and Nessa Hype Report. Today's report is sponsored by the free book Ramblings of a Madman. Here are the quotes for various items. First, Japanese gold scramble. Japanese consumers know what is the best defense against runaway inflation, and it is not the dollar. Gold ingots are up 500% in just 1 month in that country, as Japan's debt-to-GDP ratio is over 227%. As 100 million Japanese now race to physical gold, just imagine the effect on gold prices. Next, physical silver. Richard Russell says that he is buying physical silver right now. Seeing what is going on, he is a big fan of constitutional money while the non-backed fiat can still buy it. So, after preparing, keep stacking physical. Next, Russian payment system. Because of sanctions, Putin is backing a national payment system to protect Russians from payment disruptions caused when Visa and MasterCard cut ties with Russian banks. This action only allows Russia to more freely drop the dollar for all trades, signaling another nail in the dollar's coffin. Next, nail gun suicide. The 57-year-old CEO of American Title Services, whose firm is under investigation by insurance regulators, committed suicide with a nail gun. So, did any of those robo-signing shenanigans have anything to do with it? We will see. Next, Reid lies. Senator Reid took to the floor stating he never stated that many Obama-wreck horror stories were lies. However, thanks to C-SPAN, there is video evidence that on February 26th he did just that. If this bastard can't keep his lies straight within a month's time frame, you know things are going south for him. Next, Maryland abandons Obama-wreck. After spending $125 million on their Obama-wreck exchange website, Maryland officials appear to have decided to drop that disaster run by Acorn workers and go with another system. In short, Maryland officials appear to be ready to double down on stupid, as no one may never be held accountable with the $125 million theft. Next, sinking ship. With record-high inventories, a fraud investigation, and massive recalls, GM CEO Mary Barra must be suspecting that Dan Akerson threw her under the bus as he left the sinking ship. She may be attempting to clean house as GM sent word to their dealers to halt the sales of the 1.4-liter turbocharged Cruise for no apparent reason. A possible pattern is emerging where the guy messes up the situation and a woman takes the fall. Think Bernanke to Yellen or possibly Obama to Clinton?
Oh, yikes.
Finally, please prepare now for the escalating economic and social unrest. Good day.
And I just got to throw my 2 cents in after that one. You know, if for any reason whatsoever Hillary Clinton makes it into the White House, what did he just say? Double down on stupid?
It's going to happen. I don't know why you're being a
Are you
denier.
serious, man?
I don't know why you're being a truth denier.
She belongs in a prison cell because of what happened in Benghazi.
I don't know why
her and about 20 other people.
I don't know why you're being a truth denier. I mean, she's going to be running. She's going to, I mean, if they want her in, man, because they can do her agenda. You know, I was having a conversation with somebody about, you know, we're talking about the gun stuff.
Right.
And I said, don't think it would have been any different had Mitt won. And somebody said to me, no, Mitt would have gotten killed like JFK because there's no way he would have gone along with this New World Order thing.
Right.
And, you know, and that may be why Obama won again. But out of all the people, you know, the Clintons are going to be full on board with being controlled. You know it. And if they want, I've been saying it from, how long have I been saying it?
I know.
A year?
I know. All right. Before we get going off in a bunch of tangents and shit and start ranting, let's go ahead and let Greg have his, what'd you say, 5:11?
Yeah, it's 5 minutes, but I mean, we can save until Wednesday if you want to.
No, we're all right. Let's go ahead and play it.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Greg Manarino. How are you today? It is Monday, March 31st, 2014. All right, people. So I would say that the word of the day is ridiculous. Seriously, let's put a perspective on this. So we heard again from Janet Yellen, who is now, in my opinion, a super dove. She came out today with nothing but comments to push this market higher. And that was her mission, and she succeeded. Let's talk about this. She talked about how the struggling job market here in the United States, she used those words.
Struggling job market? Wait, I thought the unemployment was like 6 point something.
Low interest rates for some time. So again, despite what we're hearing from our policymakers, President Obama, you know, Janet Yellen seems to think the job market is struggling, not, you know, doing well, and we're adding all these jobs, and, you know, the economy is improving drastically. So Janet Yellen does not believe that. She came out again She believes the job market is struggling. She believes that
this is why they're
we are
throw her
going
under
to
the
need
bus,
these
right?
super low interest rates for the
Lance?
They already got a replacement lined up, remember?
Right, that's what I'm saying. This is because she's gonna talk the truth for a minute, and then they're gonna clip her.
This.
Yep.
People, we have nothing here but a managed market. And I've gone over this so many times. The unfortunate
You'll be a
thing
hero,
with
Janet.
all of this is all this is going to continue to do is cause distortions in the market, misallocation of funds. Again, what have we been hearing for weeks from other Fed presidents? They're talking about market valuations being stressed, talking about margin debt that is at historic highs. This is going to continue to get worse now. I mean, Janet Yellen is obviously oblivious to the situation of bubbles. And again, it's going to burst.
But she's the Fed chair.
Who knows, when they're done hyperinflating this.
She knows everything.
It's actually extraordinary, to use Janet Yellen's words here, people. And I think we just need to really put this into the context that it's desperation. That's really what we're seeing here. And it can't stop. It goes back to the premise I've discussed forever now, that this printing of cash out of thin air, this artificial suppression of interest rates is all part of the scheme to keep this propped up until the bitter end. It cannot end well. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, honestly, I go over this all the time, the distortions, the misallocation of funds, and everything else connected to this. So with that in mind here, we just have to be looking at
misallocation of funds. I think that's Fed speak for stolen money.
Undervalued.
Social Security.
Put this again into the context of
right.
Across the spectrum. And what am I referring to? I'm talking about the precious metals again here, people. Again, we're seeing a risk-on trade environment develop once again because of Janet Yellen and the Federal Reserve and all the world central banks. We heard last week or the week before that about how the ECB is going to continue to stimulate more, and the Chinese central bank, the same thing. So you can see what's going on here on a global scale. It's just about printing. It's about stimulating. It's about doing whatever they can to keep it propped up. And they're going to continue to do this, in my opinion, at least at this point. They're not allowing the free market to do its sole job. And what is that job? To determine fair market value for assets. And without a free market, with a managed market like we have, all you can get is distortions. That's it. It cannot be put another way in more simple terms. A free market determines fair market values. That's its job. A managed market like I have now creates a misallocation of funds to the nth degree. And it creates a more and more dangerous situation every single day. It's allowed to, again, redirect funds in places that they wouldn't normally be going in a free market. It's very frightening. It's very, very scary. It really makes this extremely challenging to try to stay ahead of it. And it's just outrageous. Anyway, all right, people, that's pretty much it for today. Just really put this into a context.
That's it right there.
The Fed.
Okay. Let's throw something in there at the end or something.
No, he just starts repeating.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that he just said, pretty much. It's scary as hell what's going on Wall Street. These people are taking your money every day. When he keeps saying misallocation of funds, that's them raping this country. They're taking as much money as they can. They're going to start coming for your personal savings next. I guarantee you, these banks start getting ready to fold again, because that's coming pretty quick too. And the Fed's going to give them authorization. They already have, actually, but all they have to do is sign a little thingy and send it to the Fed. And the Fed says, yeah, go ahead and take some of the holdings that you have. Make yourself solvent. Mm-hmm. So that's that. Anything else you want to add in?
Not on that. No.
Okay. We are going to talk about something a little off kilter. We're going to talk about this Ebola virus that's running rampant down in Guinea because it's crossed the border. They've already have 2 confirmed cases across the border, actually. And there's several videos that I'm going to play about it. The first one I'm going to drop is the Potter blog. He has something out about it, kind of tying it into what's going on with the CDC and all their purchasing and things that they're preparing for. So we're going to drop this real quick.
And I've only ever seen him be off on one thing, and I don't remember what it was. But
our blog site, March 31st, 2014. Today on the Federal Register,
he's actually not been putting
the
out
United
too many
States government
videos.
is announcing that they're giving an exclusive license for a Ebola vaccine based upon the rabies virus. And we have a link to this on our blog post, and we go into a little bit of detail and analysis here. Basically, just in time for the most recent outbreak of Ebola in Africa, which potentially has already spread into North America via Canada, the National Institutes for Health is licensing a rabies-based Ebola vaccine produced by Excel Bio. The way this rabies-based virus vaccine works is they take the rabies virus and they modify the exterior coating surrounding that virus, it's called an envelope, to include Ebola proteins. And then they make 2 versions of it. One is a killed virus, which they're planning on giving to humans, and they believe it'll confer protection from all medically relevant filoviruses and rabies. And then there's a live attenuated version, which they're going to give to non-human primates.
Ooh,
so
I'll take that one.
If it all works as planned, the person who's vaccinated is going to be protected from rabies and Ebola. Of course, such things often have unintended consequences, and we'll make a wager that giving live attenuated Ebola-modified rabies vaccines to wild, non-human primates in Africa may result in some unusual and deadly selection pressures. Now, the other thing to be aware of here is that this isn't just a standalone situation. As we've blogged about recently, the U.S. government is showing a major concern for a devastating zero-day pandemic exploit. This has started in basically around the time H7N9 started rearing itself. But basically the U.S. government has done 5 things recently. Again, they've released more federal contracts in support of these things. The Centers for Disease Control is upgrading capacity and capability at quarantine stations throughout the United States. The United States government is prepping the CDC and HHS and others to relocate and continue operations within 12 hours of their primary operation locations being wiped out.
Whoops.
The United States government is also now maintaining a year-round stockpile of vaccine-producing eggs for the sole purpose of rapidly responding to zero-day threats. And as part of that, they're going to also be continuously producing candidate vaccines throughout the year. Now, this most heavily hits for flu-based, pandemic flu-based viruses. Is basically the ability to try to respond as fast as possible.
Candidate.
CDC has also accepted an unsolicited proposal from Genentech for a nationwide proprietary antiviral distribution network. And the United States government is tying in all pandemic operations and public health operations across all levels of government with law enforcement via the Department of Homeland Security, basically going through state fusion centers. It's just a big old C4ISR compilation of capability, that type of thing that hasn't been seen or tried in an organization since the government started getting ready for World War I, basically. But the only thing we really know for sure is that the biomedical industry is getting a lot of money in near-term job security thrown at it via taxpayer dollars. And the important thing to remember is that kind of money is not spent with some sort of medical mandate being forced upon the citizenry. And even though we haven't talked about it yet in our blog post, just today, in another Federal Register notice, The United States government is basically setting out the rules and regulations by which they will reimburse people from injuries related to pandemics via government forced action. We'll put a link up to that in our blog post here in a minute.
Okay. Now, granted, that's a whole lot to take in just a few minutes because he covers a plethora of information in his short videos. So let me try to break it down for you. Just going from the very last thing he said, try to go backwards through the video. The very last thing he said was that the federal government has just allocated funds to be put on reserve for people who are going to suffer from the vaccines they're getting ready to force everyone to take. Right? Because they know there's going to be some lawsuits filed. People are going to have adverse reactions, blah, 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 blah. So, that being said, the CDC is keeping a supply of eggs, of vaccine-bearing eggs on hand for a 0-day outbreak. Now, what a 0-day outbreak is you wake up one morning and whoops, there's an outbreak in the United States. Just that fast. Bang. Boom. Pow. Already tens of people are dead, maybe hundreds of people are dead, and it's spreading. That's what a 0-day outbreak is. CDC is preparing for it. Health and Human Services is preparing for it. The federal government's preparing for it. And they have been for a minute, a hot minute. So here we go. Right? That's what I'm seeing. Here we go. Lance?
I hope I can get a double dose so I can be doubly protected.
It's
get my double vaccine. Can I get one in each arm, please?
It's just, I mean, you know, it's, I realize that things happen. People get on planes. This Ebola virus is very nasty. If it shows up in the United States, that's oof.
I don't see how you can, you know, if it's going to spread and keep it in one place, really.
How are you going to keep it in one place?
That's what I said. I just don't see how you can.
They can't. They can't down in, they can't down in, Guinea, because it's already passed over the border. I'm getting ready to pull up one of these videos actually that Pigmine has, about the outbreak down there. I think that's where I saw it anyway. I'm pretty sure he's got something on it.
Wonder if that's on that RSOE site. I don't have that link anymore.
I'm pretty sure it would be.
I quit checking that site when I found out they weren't reporting all the volcanic and earthquake activity.
Yeah. Here's, there's one. That's a short one, though. Let's see if we can find anything else. No. Okay, we'll go back to that one. There's going to be other ones, too.
And there'll be more. You'll hear about this over the next week, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Come on, talk. It says no treatment or vaccine is available. This is AFP. They usually say something. Well, that was a waste of 30 seconds. They don't talk on that one. Sometimes he does that. He just has the B-roll films. You know, he'll put the B-rolls out. But let's see what we can find here. I'm going to go to my subscriptions because I know he's got other ones.
SLC Mike is saying that it's he thinks Ebola is a man-made virus.
Is it? I thought it was natural. I thought it actually came out of the woods once in the middle of nowhere and everybody was, turned on to it.
Well, he could call in and tell us why he thinks that, but yeah.
If he does that, I'm going to have to switch phones, and I didn't do that tonight.
That's right. You didn't do that.
I don't have the phones tonight.
Gotcha.
Let's see.
Yeah, does Obamacare cover? No.
Ebola? Yeah, that's a good question. We got to ask everybody. Does Obamacare cover Ebola outbreak, man?
I see that in the chat room. He asked that.
That's a good one.
That is a pretty good one. Tonight's the deadline, too. If everybody on the listening hasn't signed up, you have until midnight tonight to at least start the process.
Whatever. So here's something else. Here it is. Here's some actual news from it.
Now, the president of Guinea, Alpha Condé, has urged the people not to panic as his government deals with an outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus. The medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières says the country is facing an unprecedented epidemic of Ebola. So far, 78 have died from the disease in Guinea. It causes severe bleeding. The country has 122 cases of suspected Ebola since January. The strain can kill up to 90% of its victims who suffer extensive internal and external bleeding. Now, 4 deaths have been reported in neighbouring Liberia. Our global health reporter, Tulip Mazumda, has this update.
The epic task of containing this deadly virus continues. The medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières is describing the outbreak as an epidemic of a magnitude never before seen. That's because it's hit 5 areas of Guinea now, including the capital, Conakry, which has a population of 2 million. Medics treating Ebola patients are at high risk, so they wear protective gear. Just touching someone who's infected could pass on the virus.
Wow, man.
We are facing an epidemic of the extent that has never been seen before, especially by the distribution of cases in the area. Other epidemics in the past have been much more concentrated than the one that we're currently confronted with. It makes our work much more difficult.
The virus, which kills up to 90% of those infected, has now spread to Liberia. There are 7 suspected cases and 4 deaths. At least 1 is confirmed to be from Ebola. Guinea's Ministry of Health, along with international partners, are now following 400 people who've been in contact with suspected cases. A key priority is to make sure they aren't continuing to spread the virus. It's a major concern Ebola has now reached the capital and neighbouring Liberia. But the country's president, Alpha Condé, has been urging people not to panic and says the authorities are doing all they can to end this deadly outbreak. Tulip Mazumda, BBC News.
Sure, trust the
Well, let's
government.
get some more on this. Anya Waltz is working with Médecins Sans Frontières in charge of the isolation procedures in Conakry and joins us now on the line. Anya, so the difficult thing about this is to isolate people who've got the virus and then try to work out who they've been in contact with.
The difficulty in the moment is the isolation was set up by the Ministry of Health, and it's really good. And in the moment we have 8 patients in the isolation. But the main issue is on one side, as we don't have any treatment for the patient, we already had yesterday 2 deaths and 1 death today. And the second one is really the contact tracing, that we can stop to find as soon as possible the suspected cases to bring them into isolation. But as we speak about the capital in Conakry with 2 million persons, we try to organize it. We have really to try to organize to work with our organization to get the suspected cases as soon as possible to isolation.
Anya Waltz from MSF.
Hello?
Yeah, thank you very much. Got to leave it there, Anya. The line is not great, but we did manage to catch what you said about the extremely worrying situation with this Ebola virus outbreak in Conakry in Guinea. Do stay watching us on World News Today. Still to come.
So that's the latest from Guinea. And actually, when I read everything that I read this morning, there was only 2 people dead in Liberia. Now there's 4. And they have, what'd you say, 8 people in isolation?
Mm-hmm.
So this thing's getting worse. I mean, and like Prepper Chick said in the chat room there, the virus can stay dormant in your body for 3 weeks. You don't even know you're carrying it for 3 weeks, and you can keep infecting people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Idea. Everybody you come into contact with, that's what they said earlier in that report right there. Even if you just touch somebody, you can catch that virus. So it's a nasty son of a bitch. And with these people flying all over the planet, you know, the outbreak scenario is just, I mean, it's just right in the back of my brain. I can't stop that. I'm glad I live where I live now. I'm glad I'm away from huge population centers. And you should be too. I'm speaking to everybody that's listening. Because whether this is a man-made virus or a natural occurring virus, it's spreading. I don't want to be a fearmonger and tell you that it's going to show up in the United States next week, but, you know, it's a distinct possibility. I'm a realist. Sue me. It kills 90% of the people that get affected. And there is no cure. There is no antivirus. There is no, the CDC is trying to come up with a vaccine, for Christ's sake. How stupid do they think we are? If there was a vaccine for the shit, there wouldn't be this huge outbreak in Guinea. You dumbasses. It's just ridiculous. I don't get it. I don't get it. Mm-hmm. Mike, if this is a man-made virus and some jackass released this on the planet, wow. 90% mortality. Wow.
I would take you down to Georgia Guidestone numbers.
In a heartbeat.
A couple weeks.
Not sure exactly how fast it kills you, but I hope it's fast, boy. I mean, if it's as nasty as everybody says it is, I haven't seen any pictures of anybody suffering from it or nothing. But, bleeding out internally, externally, that's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
That's gotta be
nasty.
That's gotta be hard to watch for the people that are working it, you know? Mm-hmm. These people that are trying to help these folks that are, to know when they come in and all of a sudden you take the blood test and you come back and, oh, God damn, you got it, man. You got it. So, hey, see ya. Hope you got all your shit in one sock, you know. 90%, you know, and you might be 1 in 10, but I wouldn't cross my fingers. Just, it's hard to even fathom, you know?
Yeah. Hope they can contain it over there. That'll be a story you won't ever hear about on mainstream media here.
Right.
Or if you do, it'll be a page 6 buried underneath somewhere.
Right. That I don't know. What do you mean? What kind of story?
Well, I mean, if they even mention it, like in the newspaper, it'll be page 6, a little paragraph of
the outbreak.
Yeah.
I think it's actually on mainstream media. I'm not really that for sure. I mean, I don't really watch a whole lot of it, but I would think that somebody would cover it. You know, I would hope anyway.
Yeah, you would hope
that somebody would cover it.
I'll turn on the news tomorrow and see if I can hear anything about it.
Yeah. And speaking of
mainstream media is, you know, you've only got a half hour to an hour to tell your news stories with commercials and everything else. I mean, how you going to cover everything anyway? So
True. You got to hit the major stuff, I think, you know, the stuff that really means something.
Yeah. And what they find as major is subjective at best.
True. That's true also.
Mm-hmm.
And we got about 15 minutes left. I did want to hit on one more thing. You know, there was 2 things I wanted to hit on today. One was the Ebola. Well, your market minute, absolutely. But the Ebola thingy, because I think that's going to be something major to keep your eyes on, people. And the other major thing that I think you need to keep your eyes on that not very many people are touching on, and it's one of those tinfoil hat thingies, is good old Yellowstone. They had the largest earthquake they've had in several decades there, just a couple days ago yesterday. The USGS downgraded it to a 4.8, but it actually registered a 5.1 on some meters that were close to the epicenter. So I'm going with 5.1. Big quake for that area of the planet. Big quake. Largest one in decades. for that area. And the thing that people aren't touching on, even the people that are hitting this story and talking about it, is that over the last 10 years, the dome that's over the caldera has risen 11 inches. People don't talk about that because it was a gradual thing. It was about an inch a year, a little more than an inch a year, but, no big deal. It's just an inch a year, right? Well, guess what? It's almost a foot in the last decade. Now, ground stretches, granted, but not that, not a whole lot. Molten ground probably stretches quite a bit, and if you've seen the aerial shots over the caldera, over the majority of the park, there are so many steam vents coming out. And this helium-4 is 10,000 times what the scientists thought it was going to be. The release of helium-4 into our atmosphere. 10,000 times what the scientists suspected it would be. I'm going to play this little clip here. This is just some news droppage on it.
A 4.8 magnitude earthquake shook one of the country's
5.1.
busiest national parks this morning. The quake struck the northern section of Yellowstone, about 65 miles southeast of Bozeman, Montana. No damage was reported, but tremors were felt up to 20 miles from the epicenter. And in Southern California, residents trembled through more than 100 aftershocks this weekend. Damage from a 5.1 magnitude earthquake on Friday prompted some evacuations. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but some wonder if the tremors are a sign of things to come. Stephanie Stanton has more on that.
In an area that hasn't had a massive earthquake in decades, this 10-second quake rattled store shelves and nerves.
The sound was horrible. I never heard that before.
And while the damage was light, it was the second significant shaker to strike Los Angeles in the past 2 weeks. On St. Patrick's Day, a 4.4 quake shook residents out of their beds. Now, many in Southern California are worried about the increase in seismic activity as they recall the days of the Northridge quake.
And Los Angeles has been in a particularly quiet time since the Northridge earthquake, the last 15, since the aftershocks ended from Northridge. The decade before Northridge, we had a damaging earthquake in Los Angeles almost every year.
Friday's 5.1 quake was centered in La Habra, 20 miles southeast of downtown Los Angeles, just below the 25-mile-long Whittier fault line. The United States Geological Survey has mapped 300 fault lines in Southern California. And while seismologists say more data is needed, it appears likely that people here should be prepared to feel more seismic activity.
We should expect the new normal to be higher. The last 15 years was too quiet. It can't be the long term. Whether or not we've really gone into that new phase, we're going to have to wait and see.
More than 100 aftershocks have hit since Friday's quake, including a 4.1 magnitude shaker that struck while we were talking to a Fullerton resident.
Now, that was a strong one.
What the heck was that?
That is what you call an earthquake.
Oh, my gosh. Friday's quake was the strongest to hit the Los Angeles area since 2008. Stephanie Stanton, Al Jazeera, Los Angeles.
All right, scary times in California, but a new baseball season upon us.
Yeah, so there you go, sheeple. Scary times in California, but hey, so what? Baseball's back, right? Hey, yay. That's the sheeple newscast for you folks.
Yeah, and it's funny, the ones in, I've got friends in California and they're like, there's so many aftershocks. It's running into normal. It's not even phasing anybody. There were so many aftershocks out in LA.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah. That's what he said. He was like, and I noticed that when that big quake struck, and you could go back to my Facebook and see some of my likes, the clock fell off the wall and the clock shattered, and the time was exactly 9/11.
Are you kidding me?
No, I could go back and show you. Remember that Falzano guy that
right.
I lost his account?
Right.
And then the Joe Skellington, the other guy that I follow.
Right.
He lives out there, and he's the one that said the quakes are getting, or the aftershocks are getting so frequent and they're so close together that nobody's even paying attention to him anymore because there's so many of them. But his clock fell off the wall, crashed and broke, and he took a picture of it and posted it. He's like, no shit.
Wow.
And that was Saturday, right around lunchtime, our time, but it was 9:11 in the morning there.
Damn. That's amazing.
Weird.
So, and you know, the thing I want to say about these earthquakes, if you follow USGS sites, you're going to get a lie, because anything in the United States, it seems, or anything is affiliated with anywhere around the United States, of anything that could be of any concern, they're downgrading for some reason. And I don't understand why. I mean, if you get a reading from a seismograph, post that reading. Don't look at it and go, well, you know, might not shook really that bad, so we'll downgrade it. Why don't you tell us what they're actually reading?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I mean, some of the stuff is posted. You know, the stuff that they got at the colleges and all that kind of shit. You know, if it's an independent person or whatever, they can put it out there, and you can see those graphs, and you can see plain as day. It was a 5.1 shaker in Yellowstone, not a 4.8. It was a 5.1, and there were more than one graph. There was more than one graph that showed it as a 5.1. It's like they selectively pick one and say, okay, we'll take that one because it was 500 miles away. You know, I don't get it. It's something that's that, you know, for the people in the area, you know, we're going into summertime. There's going to be all kinds of people. Well, I don't know about all kinds of people because the economy's in the toilet, but there's going to be folks going on vacation out there and walking around. I think they need to know what's exactly going on before they go planning a trip. Because I sure as hell wouldn't want to be walking across one of those really fancy walkways that they got built across the geyser when it goes off.
No doubt.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I need to go back to sleep. Didn't you talk about that last week? Wanting to go back to sleep. Every once in a while you just think to yourself, God, I wish I never would have woke up. Man, I wish it was all just roses and sunshine up my butt. And I didn't know that the government lied to me constantly on a daily basis.
Yeah. I mean, if you can go through, it's like that saying that, you know, when you're dead, you don't know you're dead. It hurts all the people around you.
It's the same
thing
stupid.
Being stupid. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it kind of goes to that. Or, you know, if you could go your whole life and die being stupid, I think that would be, you know, like our grandparents. I've used that analogy, but you know, that time's no longer. I don't think that being asleep, you know, just because you don't believe the truth doesn't mean that the truth exists.
Right. If you're selectively ignorant, then bad on you, good on you, whatever, you know. And I say that every once in a while. I wish I could go back to sleep, but I don't mean it. You know, I don't mean it.
Right. Me either.
You know, the information overload gets to you from time to time, and occasionally you just have to step back for a minute, you know. Mm-hmm. And I haven't really had a whole lot of opportunities to step back away from it for a minute. And I think I'm going to sometime really, really, really soon, like later this week. I'll be around for my shows, everybody, but I think I'm actually going to leave my phone in the house and take off and go do some things without it, because I don't want to stay connected for a minute. I want to get unconnected for a minute.
Well, I mean, you might as well, because I firmly believe that our internet access, I mean, it's a curse to world governments, because before the internet, how could we get the truth? You couldn't. You couldn't independently research. You couldn't get the word out.
You could, but you had to do a whole lot of library sitting and
right.
You know, writing people and requesting documents and.
You're right. Yeah. So, I mean, I see the free information, everything else.
Porter thing.
Yeah, this is not, going to end well for our internet and free speech and stuff like that. I don't believe.
You don't?
No, they have to curtail it. They have to cut us off from it.
You think that's why the government gave up control to the UN?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing with the arms treaty. And I wish I had more time to get into the story.
Wednesday.
And I will, but I'll touch base on it now. It has to do with, those sanctions.
You got 5 minutes.
Russia. Yeah. Okay. I can get into it, but, it has to do with the sanctions that the U.S. put on Russia, and everybody, you, me, Russia, looked around and said, what the hell are you doing? These aren't hurting us in any way.
Right.
The truth of the matter is those were actually, when you read into it more, those were directed at the American people, partially the American people.
Disassociation. Yeah, it's like you're no longer allowed to associate with anything to do with Russia, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and here's where it really gets funny is that they ban the ammunition ban that they have on that size 5.45 times 39 millimeter, which the AK-47s use. And there's a lot of AK-47s in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of people that got them.
Well, most of them are 7.62 by 3.9.
Right.
The 5.45s are, that's a different version of them, but go ahead.
Well, they've banned them because it has a steel rod that calls it armor piercing, and now all armor piercing steel bullets are banned, and that Feinstein, put that ban in there about importing ammo. Well, when Obama did that executive order for the, sanctions against Russia, he also directed it at any companies that deal with Russia. And the only countries that make this bullet are all Russian companies. So they've effectively stopped that
Ukrainian.
bullet from and Ukraine. But they've effectively stopped that bullet from ever entering into the country. So, I mean, it's,
well, they think they have.
Well, they can't import it. So it's just the reach of these people, sadistic people. And that's why I say being asleep doesn't help anybody right now.
Right.
Because there's going to be a time where the government's going to have to be overthrown. They know it. That's why they're trying to take away all of the arms takeaways is dealt with law-abiding citizens. Not one person's talking about taking guns away from criminals. Every single thing in Congress is all about taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. They know that their charade is coming to an end on the financial collapse.
Charade.
They don't want Americans. They don't want Americans getting mad and doing what's happened in Turkey, what's happened in these, everywhere around the country right now where people are pissed off at their corrupt governments.
The Ukraine.
Yeah, they don't want that to happen here. So I don't believe that until they get the gun grab thing under control and get the majority of the guns away, that they'll let this financial system collapse. Because they can't let it collapse while so many of us have weapons that could overthrow our government, and which is what our Constitution's all about, the overthrowing of a corrupt government. That's why those amendments are all there. I don't think it'll happen until they get the guns away from the American people. And if they don't get the guns away from us, I think the financial thing can go on for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Real quick before we go, I don't do this very often. I should more often. I want to say hi to everybody that's in the room. 8 Hawks, Hecty, Ombre, Jax, Joe, Jules, Montage. I don't know who that is. Mr. Bond, Lori, Prepper Chicks, SLC, Mike, Travid, all the Anons that are in there. Thanks you guys for showing up and listening. Everybody else that's out there listening on TuneIn or somewhere else on the interweb. Thanks for showing up to listen to UCY.tv. Help us out if you can. Click one ad a day, please, and help Jules out. We will see you on Wednesday.
Peace and love.